to be blessed enough to be in those respective conversations, you will be having those same conversations. So the outcome, a proactive tax strategy reduces your taxable estate, preserves more wealth for your heirs, and ensures the maximum portion of your life's work reaches the people you intended it for. Isn't that part of the, if we want to get, some people say we'll get spiritual or biblical, you're supposed to leave an inheritance for your children's children. So it's right, if that's right there in the good book, why aren't we doing that here in the natural? See, it's good to quote scripture, but if you can apply the principles and be active in your application of the principles, then you can manifest accordingly. Any questions before we move on to the next slide? Okay. Additional critical components. Dr. Cheryl, can you read that next slide for me, please? Next paragraph.
Additional?
No, the paragraph. The paragraph.
A truly, is that what you're asking me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. A truly comprehensive, let me move over my phone. Estate planning extends far beyond a will and a trust. Life is unpredictable, and your plan must account for the scenarios that occur while you are still living, not just at the moment of death. These components ensure that your affairs remain in a trustworthy hands no matter what life presents.
Here are some of the critical components. A durable power of attorney. That means you're designating a trusted agent to manage your financial and legal affairs if you become incapacitated. Without this, your family may be forced into a costly and time-consuming court guardianship process. It reminds me of the show Different Strokes, that when you think about Arnold and Willis, their mother, who was so good to Mr. Drummond, that when she transitioned, by her being around someone who was affluent and was pretty much, a wealthy individual, she strategically recognized that even though she was from Harlem, she mandated that the fact that when she transitioned initially, because remember the first couple of seasons, they were just in guardianship. She left it there that, Mr. Drummond would be able to take care of her children, but he never adopted them until later on in the series. So that durable power of attorney showed that this woman was still wise, even though she was just a maid. She was wise beyond her means. She was wise enough to say, wait a minute, I've been around these individuals, around the affluent, around the wealthy. I'm hearing they talk. And she went in action. And even though initially it was just, okay, we're living in this great house up the east side, this, that, and the third. And eventually that moved into Mr. Drummond ended up adopting them. And he still said, keep your name. That was one of the greatest parts of that whole show. It's like, wait a minute, your name isn't going to be Drummond. You're still your last name. Still keep your last name, but legally, you're part of my family. And it was a great testament. So durable power of attorney is so important. Guardian designation for dependents, especially if you have small children, formally names who will raise your minor children or care for dependent adults in your household if you're no longer able to do so. That's another important point. Because sometimes we just so focus on children that we don't recognize, like they say these days, Gen X. We're in that particular generation where we're kind of in the middle. Because there are times that we still have individuals in our lives that are younger than us, who are, some of our children who are still actively living in some of our homes that we own. And then at the same time, we have adults who are our elders who are also covering and taking care of as well. So as we're in that space, it's not only just looking at, okay, how do we take care of minors, but if you know that you're responsible for your elders, which we all should be in some space or form or fashion, because we should never forget our elders, not that they're old, but you never forget your elders, you start to recognize that, yo, you have to have that mandate as well. It's like, yo, this person who I have to consider as well. So that guardian designation, because eventually even your elders become your dependents. Updated insurance beneficiaries. Now, this is a major caveat that a lot of times, at least once a year, or however it is, you should be looking at your paperwork to make sure that you have everything strategically situated properly to make sure that you have the right beneficiaries, especially when it comes to your insurances. Beneficiary designations on life insurance and retirement accounts supersede your will. Outdated designations can redirect assets to unintended recipients, a critical and commonly overlooked error. Now, I divorce that woman, or I don't want that man to get that. Well, I mean, you still kept his name on that thing. And now, I don't know, because of emotion or feeling or whatever, this is what's on that document. Regardless of whatever it is that you felt that you were going to do or what your desire was, you didn't make your intentions known. So at least once a year, and usually most insurance companies will send you the communication. And a lot of times people say, I don't want to open up. They just ask me about something about, doing a checkup about, no, do the checkup. Make sure that that right individual that's supposed to be the beneficiary of those proceeds is the right and true individual that's supposed to get them. And retirement account alignment. Ensure that your 401ks, your IRAs, and pension accounts are aligned with your overall estate plan, including proper beneficiary designations and distribution strategies that minimize tax consequences for heirs. That's what I talked about a little bit earlier. Yes, your 401k if you're a worker. You say, oh, that's just my retirement account. Hey, you put that in trust. There are ways. Your IRA, your pension, stuff like that. No, there are ways to make sure that what you earned and what you're supposed to be receiving is still going a little bit longer even after you transition. But people would say that, oh, that's this and that's there. No, that's about being as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And too many times us black and brown people want to quote one part, I'm not going to be a serpent. Well, God created the serpent as well. So be as wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. And the overall truth for this particular slide, legacy planning is not only about death, it is about life. A plan that only activates after death leaves your family unprotected during your lifetime. And we should not be moving unprotected. Because there are times you have to be in those spaces where even if you don't like using debt, sometimes you have to leverage things. But you're leveraging it for the right thing, that you're going to build an asset. That means at least you're tapping into debt to get an asset, not just to pay bills, not just to be more beholden to the lender. Because eventually you should be the lender and not just the borrower. Any thoughts or questions? Any thoughts popping up before we move on? Excellent. Financial literacy integration number 3. Now, if you're looking for the first 2, you got to go back and check some of the previous episodes. Shameless plug. Make sure you become a subscriber. Turn your notifications on. We would love to have you. We love you as a subscriber, and with your notifications on, especially when you see the new episodes pop up, you'll get that ding ding. And you can be caught up in what we're doing here in the Comeback Collective Circle. You transfer what you structure. Say it again. You transfer what you structure. Every generation makes a transfer, intentional or not. The question is never whether you will pass something on. The question is what you will pass on. Without deliberate structure, the transfer is chaotic, incomplete, or counterproductive. So, Ms. Johnson, can you read assets? What is an asset that we should be transferring without chaos, making sure stuff is complete and stuff is productive? What is under assets?
Real estate, investments, and business equity that are properly tied and protected transfer seamlessly. Unstructured assets are often lost to probate, taxes, or family conflict.
Ooh, people sitting there at the funeral, not crying because you done left out, but you created more drama because your stuff wasn't properly titled. Even business concerns, business entities, after a while, you start to recognize, you start people, when they're doing proper tax planning and say if they're stock heavy, all of a sudden they start moving stuff. So, okay, all this stock is being transferred out of grandpa or grandma's name into the trust. Now, you still own the shares. Not that you're selling the shares, but now, especially if you have a highly viable asset, all we're doing is just making sure that, when grandma, that individual, whoever it is, transitions, it's seamless. Like that person's worth $5 billion. Yes, now the trust is worth $5 billion. Like, oh, wait a minute. So now the government can have their hand out. It's like, wait a minute, this stuff is in the trust, and that's the reason why this family, generation after generation, they're talking about how many generations this family is still going on, moving in some level of prosperity because they were strategically structured. Debt. Outstanding obligations do not disappear. Unmanaged debt becomes an inheritance burden that can erode or eliminate the wealth you intended to leave behind. This is another reason why that certain things with certain debt, people start to recognize how to get certain even debts out of their name, or start to position themselves that if they have some liquidity, they start to eliminate some of those debts because they know, okay, if I take some of this liquidity, that means resources that they have at hand. Say, I'm gonna knock down some of these debts or eliminate some of these debts. So I know I'm about to transition. So by the time, I still have a nice, healthy piece here that's going to move forward, perpetually forward. By me doing this, my heirs or those who are supposed to inherit are not going to have to deal with the drama. Yes, Miss Clark, Miss Karen Clark.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Who would one consult with to do all this work?
Well, definitely, I would say a good tax lawyer. You can get a CFP, which is Certified Financial Planners, who would probably give you some of the same thoughts, and depending upon if you're creating a will, or if you're at the stage that you may have the will and now you're ready for the trust, you have those conversations with some of the professionals, even though you can do some of the research these days on your own. But I always suggest finding you a good tax attorney, someone who deals with estate planning. And there's plenty of people out there. And, sometimes when you're in certain conversations, ask people if they, depending upon, who you're moving with, all of a sudden they say, we got a trust, we got our will situated. Like, oh, could you recommend it? How's the process? Without getting too much into their business, but you're starting to see how they're structuring themselves to recognize that we were able to generate and to gather these things. Now, how do we keep it like other communities and other wealth generating families have done so? Hopefully that answered your question as we go
Ye-
to.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes, Miss Johnson.
Sorry, speaking on mute. If you're part of a union, they also have a team of lawyers and financial professionals that they can refer you to as well.
Excellent.
And I'm complete.
Uh-huh. That's a place to start. So
Excellent.
I'll call UFT and start from there.
Yeah, one of the strongest unions in the whole entire country. Jesus. They definitely have some people who will definitely sit down with you and assist you with some of those things.
Oh,
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
thank you.
You're welcome. Miss Dr. Cheryl Clark, can you read systems? What in the box is in systems that you should structure properly and powerfully?
Sure. Documented financial systems, business processes, And operational structures allow successors to step in and sustain what you built without starting from zero.
Now you understand why a lot of wealthy families, even if, little Johnny may be, the black sheep of the family, they still have him as a part of the family business. So, okay, we'll just stick him in the mailroom. Well, no one really has mailrooms anymore, but, we'll stick them in that part. And hopefully, if they're wise, they start learning different parts of the business. And as we see that they're getting their development process and learning more and more what's going on here, that allows them to have the what type of life that they're experiencing. Then after a while, says, okay, now we're going to put you in charge of this small department. Then all of a sudden, we'll put you in charge of this division. Then all of a sudden, we got you working as maybe a VP over here. And maybe if you've taken the skills or went to the right school or had the right contacts and did exactly what we asked you to do, now you're ready to, govern this part of the business structure. And next thing you know, when it's time for you to leave out, you start to recognize you have everything situated, not only just from a resource standpoint, but how do we keep this thing going? Anheuser-Busch is a 150-year-old brewery. People still drink Budweiser or Bud Light. But the Bushes and the Anheisers, when they merge, this is still a family legacy business. If you look at Walmart, the Walton family, we're talking about between the 6 children, each of them are worth probably close to like 80 billion. That's systems. Whereas, those habits, which I'll read the habits, but when you start to recognize systems are important, if you're building a business, that means you have to figure out who's going to keep this thing going. Who can you pass the baton to so that, this thing doesn't just fall apart? And part of that could be part of our problem as well. Because if we're not willing to share certain things, then you have to figure out maybe it's better for you to sell it. And then figure out what you're going to do with those resources and assets, and those assets go into the trust. And then it says, look, I attempted to lead this for y'all, but none of y'all desired to step up to the plate. And if they didn't step up into the plate, then maybe it's better for me to sell. Because why waste the possibility? Why waste? At least I can get something from it. And then figure out, okay, what I'm going to do with these resources. Maybe invest in something else that, can be rinse and repeat. And that's why I love like Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal doesn't make pizza. Shaquille O'Neal doesn't sell insurance, but he's part owner in all these type of businesses. Shaquille O'Neal is not a chef, but he owns a bunch of restaurants. Shaquille O'Neal doesn't wash cars, but he owns a bunch of car washes. You start to recognize what is it that you're doing or seeing that people will utilize that generates some level of income. Yes, there's going to be investment involved. Yes, there may be stuff that you may have to leverage, but you have to go beyond the norm. And when you have plenty of people out there who can give you those, how should I say, those guidances, and based upon even just being osmosis to see what they've done, you can do it as well. I can do it as well. Which leads to habits. The financial behaviors and values you model, that means saving, investing, giving, and stewarding, becomes the invisible inheritance that determines whether heirs grow or squander what they receive. If you're not willing to at least be in those conversations, or at least offer those conversations, like, wait a minute, I'm willing to offer you my wisdom. Now, if you choose to take it or you choose not to listen to it, now you start to recognize, okay, that person is not really going to be part of my trust or part of my will. Because why I'm going to bust my behind while I'm alive to create all the structure or create this possibility of generational wealth that you are not helping to participate or help to continue. You want to act like the prodigal son who never returned. At least the prodigal son had enough sense to return. But you're the prodigal son that's like, oh, no, I don't care about it. Okay, you don't care? Okay, no problem. Not fussing, not being upset, not being disturbed. So habits are very, very important, and especially how we move with money. Moving with money is a very distinctive thing, and I respect money so much. Respect money, not love it. And recognize that money has a purpose. And if you don't give it a purpose, that's when it gets squandered or that's when it disappears. But when you give it a purpose, you start to understand that with consistency and time, you can grow it and it can work for you. So the insight, wealth without wisdom dissolves within a generation. Structure your assets and your values. Both must be transferred with intention. Any thoughts before we move on to the next slide? Excellent. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Estate planning versus a will. One of the most important distinctions in legacy planning is understanding the relationship between will and a full estate plan. Please, a will is not an estate plan. A will is a will. Please don't think that just getting a will and, oh, I got a will, so no. A will is just is a document that allows you to say, okay, this is what I desire to do, X, Y, Z. Now, when you start moving to estate planning, you start recognizing that you have a cohesive strategy. Many people believe that writing a will means their planning is complete. In reality, a will is just one instrument within a much larger strategic system. And as you can see by the chart here or the graphic, in your estate planning, there's a comprehensive strategy. It not only covers you when you're living, but also empowers you when you're transitioning. That means you have trust, you have powers of attorney, you have tax strategies. And as we see on the other side, a will is just a single component, exclusively post-death. All it deals with is asset distribution and guardian designation. So for clarity's sake, a will is a tool, not the system. Relying on a will alone leaves significant gaps in your protection, your tax strategy, and your lifetime planning. Build the full system. Not some stuff. Build it all. Start recognizing, as Miss Karen Clark asked the question, yes. Start asking those questions, because sometimes we're positioned in certain conversations and say, oh, I only own this and own that, so I shouldn't have it. Who told you that lie? You'd be surprised. Like, wait a minute, this is an asset, or you may have a wealth generating business, or oh, wait a minute, all this stuff has to be strategically positioned, because it makes no sense to be, to create something that you're just leaving for naught, and there's no possibility of generational passing on. As we move towards the last slide, the legacy mandate. Legacy is a leadership responsibility. The decision to plan your legacy is not a financial decision. Please get that out of your mind. It's not about just being financial. It's not about just resources. It is a leadership decision. That leadership allows you to recognize that, wait a minute, I'm leaving something because I'm allowing for structure to be at play. And for some of us who like to invoke spirituality, God is a God of order. That means God is a God of structure. God is a God of maintaining certain things that, if you do the principles and follow the principles, which I've given you, which I put in the Old Testament, or even reimagine and utilize in the Second Testament, you start to recognize, these are just principles. Apply the principles. If you have something in your hand, learn to look to see how you can double it or triple it, or be in that exponential space of multiplication, because technically it's not about addition. You should be always multiplying. So it's always a leadership decision that you're moving in. It is a declaration that your family's future matters more than the discomfort of having difficult conversations today. And there are times where you start to recognize that's how you can really start to train up and see who can be responsible, who you can start to figure out, like, who are the individuals that's going to keep this thing going? And technically, those are the ones that you really should be pouring back into. Because even though someone may have your last name or even your same blood, does not mean that they have your good interests at heart. And it's not a make wrong. It's not saying that the person is a bad person. It's just That's just not how they're built. And you have to recognize that. Please do not use emotionalism as the caveat, because then you could have built a whole bunch of stuff and then all of a sudden it just squandered because you got caught up in the emotion instead of recognizing this is a business of living, not just being in the space of sharing an aspect of love. Leaders plan deliberately, structure wisely, and transfer effectively. So the first box, plan deliberately. Do not wait for the right moment. There's no such thing as the right moment. The right moment is now. Schedule your estate planning consultation, document your wishes, and begin the process today. So knowing Miss Karen Clark, hopefully she'll reach out to her UFT rep or go onto UFT website and start figuring out, how the union can have someone or what division could be there to assist her in those respective choices. Structure wisely. Use trust. Proper titling. Yes, titling. Beneficiary designations and tax strategies to build a system that works long after you are gone. We all will have a dash. Every single last one of us. Now, people may sit there and be like, oh, that person's dash was a great one because they did this, they did that, they impacted this, they did that, and they built the da-da-da. Great. But if your dash can supersede you, and even though you may have transited, like Michael Jackson's dash has still superseded him. Anyone who's left a trust or left a legacy that goes beyond just you left people bills, and you have something that has a generous estate that's still able to generate, you did well. Good and faithful servant. You did wonderfully. Your name is still ringing out after you are gone. That means you did well. You did what you were supposed to do. And transfer effectively. Communicate your plan to your family. Share your values. Make sure the next generation understands not just what they will receive, but why and what is expected of them as stewards. That's the major caveat. It's not about just flossing or buying the next, design or whatever. It's about recognizing, wait a minute, in order for you to have those type of experiences or traveling the globe and you want to be just an influencer. No. Influencer can only go but so far. The people who have structured, titled assets that are generating are powerful way beyond when it's time for them to leave off this plane. And the final declaration, I will not leave confusion. I will leave structure, clarity, and continuity. A legacy worthy of the life I live and the family I love. And with that being said, we are complete. So any thoughts? I know Ms. Johnson got some thoughts. And Ms. Johnson, do me a favor for the gift tax. What was it for 2025? I know I had for 18,000 for 2024. I know you can probably find that for me real quick. What is the gift tax level that a person can give? Knowing Trump, he came in and he probably raised that sucker a little bit higher. But how much could the gift tax that someone can give to people without incurring any kind of altness from the IRS that Donald Trump can never sue again, or they can't sue him, or all this other madness? There's a number
That
coming.
is 19,000 per recipient. If you meant the lifetime gift in the state exemption, it is 13.99 million per individual, or 27.98 million for a married couple.
So that means when you see some of those estates of those people who worth billions of dollars, it's like, okay, we need you to marry the right person. Because even we start talking about beneficiaries and life insurance, we're we're going to put about $13 million in your account. The government can't say nothing. This is how the wealthy do. Or You're going to make sure that house that you have is paid for. Now that you have a mortgage, you have an asset. Not that you're jumping around every 5 years talking about, oh, I need something bigger and this. No, no, no. This is your home. You make sure this was structured enough and big enough that you can rear your whole family here. Because as this asset continues to appreciate, you start to understand the power of owning that piece of land. But sometimes we're so positioned as Black and brown communities to be like jumping around like we're cockroaches or grasshoppers. That's not sustainability and wealth unless you have a bunch of rental properties and you have different owners. That's something different. But please don't get caught up like what happened to Floyd Mayweather, where this man had hundreds of millions of dollars and squandered it, and now he's talking about getting back in the ring because now you owe the IRS this, and you were just a billboard for that. And it's like, wait a minute, your money's it's not about flossing. Now, believe in me, as I will always say, I have no problem buying nice items, things of quality, because I'm going to enjoy my life. And I'm not going to just be a walking billboard. Because there's a point of having Nikes on your feet and still invested in Nike. Just makes sense. So we're going to go to Miss John. I saw Cheryl had her hand up, and then I'm going to go to Miss Johnson.
Well, Dr. Clarke, I like to always, let me just say this, because I like to be a caveat here. Mayweather is just doing what he's taught to do.
Jesus.
He was the first generational wealth, and this is where I just need you to be a little graceful, Dr. Clarke, and just give us a little grace right here. And because they don't even know what it is. So if we go look at it, Mayweather has to go back, like Dr. Clarke said, in the ring because of how he handled his money. He's a very wealthy man of what he did. But I like what the Magic Johnsons of the world did, the Shaqs did, as Dr. Clarke alluded to. They were taught what to do with their monies. And a lot of athletes come from poverty, and they're first generational millionaires. And if they're not taught what to do with their monies, they will be back in the poorhouse. So I would say with platforms like this, learning how to invest your money, understanding that wealth comes and it's not fast money, it grows over time. So it's important for us to realize what that looks like and what is the avenues for me to grow the wealth over time and stability, because for all the fast money does not work. So understanding how to build it and to be with this times like this. Nobody ever realized that we would be in times like this. Gas prices in Florida for over $4. I would have never thought I've seen that in the southern states. So in this time frame, look at who is making it right now, and what did they do with their money? What was the track record? So go and look at that, take some skills there, and then start to apply it to your life. And I'm complete.
Thank you. I like that. That was good. That was excellent. Very good. Very good. Miss Johnson, the floor is yours.
I'm still absorbing what Dr. Cheryl shared. But sometimes the best bequeath you can have for someone in your will is nothing. No, I'm being completely honest, because some people, even with the right guidance, can't manage a large sum of money. So it might be better to put money in trust. Say, okay, for the rest of your life, you'll get a $2,000 check every month. It won't make you rich, but it will not allow you to exercise your vices to the highest level. So sometimes a gift of, I love you, I'll pay for therapy for the rest of your life, I'll have a little housing fund set up for you, but I will not give you hard cash or assets that you can convert into cash, because it's not healthy for you. So just wanted to allow people to keep that in mind. I'm complete.
Thank you for that. That's interesting. Miss Clark, do you have anything to say on that? Because see, I know
I'm
my
just swooning because all of this is new for
mm,
me. Yes, all of this financial information is new. So I'm kind of in overload,
mm,
but it has triggered a curiosity.
mm,
Yes, for me it has. Because I know there were missing links, and I'm beginning to see why and where they are.
mm.
So this has been super helpful.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
my brother.
You're very welcome, my sister. Mr. Sampson. Uh-oh. Mr. Sampson made it home safe. This is good.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. I had a question.
Go ahead.
Transferring, say, the asset of your home to a trust, does that involve refinancing in the trust name, or can it be, you have it in your spouse's name now. Can it be converted to a trust, or does a whole new closing have to be involved? Are you,
Well, that's
okay.
where the estate planning lawyer will come into play. But from what I've been privy to, usually when you have an asset that is appreciable and something that, especially if it's paid off, if you have an asset that's paid off, and say, you're now in your 50s and 60s, and you were lucky enough because they're talking to alphas and the Gen Zs. They can't even sniff at real estate. So we, as the boomers and the Xers who may have real estate, if we get to the space once we have that asset that is paid off, the only thing that we have is like regular insurance and taxes. It's easier to convert to a trust because now what'll end up happening is the trust becomes the owner. The trust owns the property. Now you still live in it, you still take care of the taxes, and you know, all of a sudden, and you don't necessarily have to refinance. As I love how Ms. Johnson is sharing in screen in the chat. And so it's about recognizing the fact of the matter is that you may have an asset that's appreciable that you don't necessarily have to sell. And that's why when you hear some of the horror stories of, some of the boomers or some of the individuals who may have been real estate rich and didn't have the right advice, and that they tell them to sell the house and things of that nature so they can lower their tax status. And it's like, wait a minute, you didn't have to do that. Especially if you said that the house is paid for. Transfer that sucker to a trust. Now all of a sudden when something happens to you, it's part of the trust. It's part of an entity that's not part of a person. The person, the body's going to go. The trust can go on forever. The trust can go on forever as long as you have the right people, and ever so often, whoever's the people who are running the trust gets updated ever so often. The trust is the thing that controls the entity. That's why you hear a very interesting caveat. And I heard Shaq say that the other day. He kind of let it slip out while he was, but he says all of my companies are not in my name, but I control everything that has my name. And it's like you sit there for a second, and like he was just joking about it, messing with Chuck, and it was like, well, what he said is true, because he learned from the Dr. Busters. He started learning. He talked about it all the time that he got the book, Business for Dummies and stuff like that while he was just getting into the NBA, because he started recognizing. He said he desired when he finally got that first major contract. It was like, wait a minute, I am not wealthy. And he recognized that, and he learned that real quick. He said, someone can sign me to a $120 million contract and don't bat an eye and can give that to me over 7 years. I'm playing. It's not that he was playing the wrong game. He recognized, like, wait a minute, I need to be sitting in these rooms and learn from these people. Because if you can afford to pay me $17 million a year at that time, says, wait a minute, y'all are playing a different game. I need to find out that game. And he did. So like as this past weekend, he graduated and one of his sons graduated and stuff like that. And he even had that, and he talked about it. He said he has stuff in trust for his children. He made all of his children. I think he has 6 or 7 children. But Part of it is that they had to go to college. They had to graduate with at least their bachelor's degree. You'll get this little piece of money upon graduation. You go for your master's. Okay, you get another sum on top of it. It's not that I'm just handing you money because you're my child. Going back to something that Miss Johnson was sharing. Not that you're just my child. Oh, I was able to create this burgeoning empire, and it's just, oh, you have the O'Neill name, and you get just to do nothing and just enjoy the fruits of it. No, you're gonna earn something. You're gonna bring something back that helps with the family legacy. And if you're not willing to bring anything back and all you do is care about self, then you stay right where you are. I can love you from afar. Because that's the only thing I can technically definitely agree with Miss Johnson about. No, there are people that I know in my life like, wait a minute, I love you, but nah, mm-mm. I see how you move. Once you see how a person moves, you don't be angry or be disturbed or walk around with a chip on your shoulder. Nah, keep them over there. Bless them. No anger, no anxiety, no madness. You stay over there. Because if you didn't help us build it or it's going to help us to keep this thing rolling, why should you enjoy the fruits of the labor? That's craziness. That's not even principle based. Oh, I ain't do nothing to help you create this, but I should enjoy all the fruits of your labor. And too many black and brown people, we do that. And we call it love. That's not love. That's neutering. Even the animal kingdom have it better than us. Animal kingdom knows after a while that eagle knows how to destroy that nest. Certain predator groups, they know after a while, even they may love their son and he's starting to burgeon up and starting to get his mate. Now you need to go find your own pride and your own space where you're going to build your stuff. This has already been taken. So I appreciate everyone being with us tonight. Great conversation. Appreciate y'all as the Comeback Collective Circle. And I'm just going to share different ways that we can support the platform, especially here at the Comeback Collective Circle. You desire to be a blessing by a Cash App, that's $ Gregory Clarke D-Min. Or if you're doing it by a Venmo, just drop the $, still Gregory Clarke D-Min. And if you desire to be a blessing by a Zelle or PayPal, you use the same email address, esquire971@gmail.com. And I can't wait till next week as we start a new arc, as we continue down this dynasty path, as we continue to be in the space of applying these principles. So we recognize that it's not for those other people, it's not for these people, but it's for all of us. And I appreciate you. So once again, if you haven't gotten your copy of Life in the Huddle, I know I'm finally ordered the book. So for certain people, once I have the books in hand, then I'll start to offer autographed copies. I'll wait till the book's in hand because I don't want to create an offer. I don't desire not to create an offer without the books in hand, but they should be here, I believe, this weekend. So I can't wait to start doing that, to send people autographed copies when they pay for a book. And, but you can go to Amazon.com right now and get a copy of Life in the Huddle. Also, you can get a copy, if you don't have one, of Girl You Cute. That's written by Dr. Cheryl Clarke as well. That's available on Amazon.com. And so, we're thinking about beyond ourselves. We're thinking about the generations that's coming behind us. And that's going to be part of our burgeoning legacy. So until next week, when we come back with the great Comeback Collective Circle, this is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr. signing off, saying peace and love, and have a great week ahead.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.